We recently did a crazy challenge. We ran a marathon every day for 7 days.
Yep. Today we put on our coaching hats to talk you through what we did, what we learned, and some of the strategies we used to get us through what was, for both of us, the biggest week of running we'd ever done. 7 marathons in 7 days. If you haven't watched the video already, I suggest you do. It's a pretty good viewing and you can watch Mark and I suffer. Now, we'd love to have included all the information that we're going to discuss here today in that video itself, but that would have made the video a marathon. See what I did there?
Now, obviously and understandably, we had a lot of questions under that video, like what did we eat each day? What were we wearing? Shoes, clothing, how we were pacing it? And did we have any recovery strategies? So we thought we'd dedicate a whole Coach's Corner and answer those questions for you.
Yeah, before we do, remember to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoy this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our other videos.
Okay, well, first off then, James, first key takeaway from this challenge.
I think probably that people out there are crazy. I mean, we knew this was hard, and we knew this was going to be hard going into it, and we were under no illusions. But almost every day we got comments on social media of like, oh yeah, you guys are just running marathons though. Sean Conway did 105 Ironmans in 105 days. And there was some guy who did a marathon every day for a month. And there's some lady in Australia who's on like marathon 240 in a row or something ridiculous. And some guy did 401 in 411 days or something. And it's all, when you're out there suffering, it's quite disheartening. People go, oh, you're only doing 7 in 7 days.
It does play with your motivation a bit. I mean, not that we're obviously doing it for social media or any kind of record, but that constant diminishing of what you are doing, it hurts when you're really hurting yourself anyway.
Yeah, anyway, social media, what are you going to do? Anyway, we weren't actually doing it for any records or anything like that. I'd say the first thing I learned was that, or probably reinforced is more accurate because I didn't really already know this, you can go a lot further than you think you can. I mean, there were points in there where I didn't want to necessarily still be going. I could have happily pulled the plug, and I think that came across in the video a few times. I remember a long conversation Mark and I had about him potentially not starting day 4 and how we would smooth that over in the video or explain it away. But we did both make it, despite our reservations and despite probably not being in the best preparation we've ever had. We got to the end of it. You can go further than you thought you can if you just persevere.
Yeah, we did it. So I think probably the most common question we got under the video is, and understandably, around nutrition. Like, what did we do with our nutrition? How we, not just in the runs, but also around that.
Yeah, I mean, I ate pretty much the same thing every day. And I mean, everything from the moment I woke up until the end of the marathon was pretty much the same on every day. I obviously had the added advantage of doing them at pretty much the same time every day, whereas Mark was all over the place with some of his. But I ate almost exclusively. I had toast for breakfast, 4 or 5 slices with either Nutella or honey on, and a banana, and coffee, plenty of coffee, more coffee as the week went on, but I'm a bit of a coffee addict at the best of times. And then during the runs themselves, I had mostly Precision Fuel and Hydration chews, were my main fuel source. I think I ate something like 44 chews over the course of all the marathons, which is quite a lot of calories. I did supplement those with caffeinated gels from Precision Fuel and Hydration. Those are 30 grams of carbs in, and I had a few of those in each run, except for the day I forgot them, which was a mistake. And then supplemented that with some real food, and that changed. It depends what I had in the house and also what I stuffed in my pockets. I think one day I took kids' Rice Krispie treats out of their snack drawer. Yeah, that went down pretty well. Stroop waffles was another day. A whole bag of Haribo one day was my special treat. And yeah, that got me through every day.
Nice. Mine was, as you kind of mentioned, a little bit more up in the air. I'm probably not giving myself enough credit. I think we, without realising, have a lot of knowledge and experience in doing this sort of thing, and actually I know what to go to and grab.
What works and doesn't
work. What doesn't work, but I didn't really have a plan, and I very much was sort of grabbing what was available, and at times I I was caught out a bit. We just weren't prepared because, as I mentioned in the video, we were moving house and all sorts of stuff going on. I just hadn't had time to go to the shop, so I was like getting to the evening, like, oh my God, I haven't got anything for dinner and I haven't got enough time, and what am I going to have? A couple of times when my recovery just wasn't really on point. I was getting in through the door, I had to leave straight away, and I just didn't have stuff there. I actually, as we've mentioned as well in the video, I sort of got on top of that a little bit further on into the week, and it definitely paid. And you could see that in all my recovery scores on Whoop, much, much better. During the runs, pretty much the same. Precision fuel and hydration gels, and I had a couple of sort of like cereal bars. Pretty much the same thing every day, and electrolytes, obviously.
I also fell into that trap with the recovery, feeling like I had most things planned and prepared. I had made sure I had enough chews and stuff for the runs, but then afterwards, I hadn't really compensated what I normally have in the kitchen or in the house for the extra calories I was going to need. So I'd come in and I'd be like, right, lunch. I don't have enough lunch. I just said normally I'd have a sandwich and I need more than this now. And then dinner, I'd have my wife would make dinner for me that night and I'd be like, I'm going to need a few more carbs, and go off and cook some pasta.
Now, what is interesting, we discussed this a lot whilst we were running. We couldn't have chosen a worse time of year to do this in terms of the weather. However, there was a silver lining to this. And the fact that we're running for 4+ hours some days, and we didn't have to refill our drink bottles. I mean, we both had our hydration on the front, and that was pretty much it. So we had a litre of fluid between us each, and that was it.
Yeah, that was, hydration, staying on top of hydration was particularly easy because it was so cold. Although, you did have to stay on top of it, because on the first day it was like sub-zero, and I only thought, we're going to loop back. If I need to fill it up, I'll fill it up. And I just took one of my 500ml flasks, and then I got really thirsty because you are still sweating a little bit, and I almost ended my whole week on that first run by getting dehydrated and not being able to carry on. Got through that, and from then on carried at least a litre. But didn't need much more than that for 4-hour runs every day. It was,
although I will admit the cold did get to me initially for early on. That second run when it set off early.
It was cold.
Oh, that got me. Right, pacing then.
Okay, well, we didn't have any, our goals weren't to set any records or anything. Like, we weren't going for the fastest average pace of 7 marathons in 7 days. Maybe next time.
But there was like a matter of sort of wanting to just get through it. And we also have a sort of comfortable pace.
That's the thing with these things. You could walk the marathon. And I actually said it at one point in the video. You can walk it. But it's so slow. And it actually wears you even more because you're out there for so long. So you have like this middle ground. And there were a few times also where you get tired and you settle into a really plodding pace where it's really slow, and then like we'd meet someone or someone would join us and you pick up the pace a bit and you'd say, like, I actually feel so much better at this pace than at the slower pace.
Really interesting.
We tried to settle into our comfortable pace, not too slow that you felt like you were plodding and dragging and it was taking a long time, but also not so fast that you were hurting yourself for the next day. And that ended up being around 4 hours for each marathon.
Yeah, and some were significantly quicker, some were a little bit slower. So on average, I reckon we're around 4 hours.
Yeah, I think we
pretty good going.
Luckily, we're very similar paces too. There were a few times where I felt like I was slowing Mark down, but we were very similar paces. So we could, keep moving without feeling like one of us was really slowing the other one down or really pushing the other one. So,
and I guess also to add to that, and I think you brought this up a few times, just the route choice and elevation, because it wasn't like we're doing this on fast courses or surfaces as well as that. And there were some slight reasons for that. Obviously, we were trying to minimize the amount of impact that we're feeling over the course of the week and also distribute the workload over the muscles. However, I think we probably have slightly different preferences in that. I quite like going off-road and hilly, whereas I think at times you would just have preferred to just stick on the flat and just get it done.
Questioning all my life choices. Should have been an accountant.
Yeah, I think we discussed this a little bit while we were out there running, and there was a lot of time to talk. But the psychology of running these long distances and how the two of us kind of approach it differently, and we could probably do a whole coach's corner just on the psychology of ultra endurance events. I tend to dissociate quite a lot and I can just disappear into my head and come back in half an hour and go, right, how far have we covered, and then dissociate again and disappear. Whereas Mark feels like he constantly needs like some kind of stimulation from outside. So he wants to go on different routes where it's always changing and he's concentrating on what's under feet so that the time goes. Whereas I could quite happily just go into neutral mode in my mind and just let the hours pass by while I plodded along. So that was where the route choices kind of conflicted a little bit. But yeah, we got round them all and a decent pace too. And I don't regret any of the routes we chose, although there was one where we turned around.
Good job we did when we did. So next one then, equipment, because that is pretty important too.
Well, it was particularly when it was this cold.
Yeah, we both sort of played around with different footwear choices and also clothing.
Yeah, we get to footwear in a minute. The clothing, obviously, it was cold, so we had to make sure we were warm. And in fact, one day where it was less cold, I decided not to wear long trousers, long tights, and I wore just shorts. And it was actually my worst day out there. And I'm pretty sure it was because my legs were cold. We weren't running fast enough to actually really warm up my legs. And so you had that cold, kind of heavy feeling in your legs, and they just didn't warm up, and you couldn't run fast enough to warm them up. The next day I wore thermal tights, even though the temperature was much the same, and I felt so much better the whole day. And that was a good lesson, although I only learned it later in the week. And also then just wearing the right kit to stay dry, having layers that you could take on and off, because it did change too. We had some days where it was like really cold in the beginning, and then you actually warmed up to quite a warm temperature, and you were down to like just a t-shirt, and then later, and then it started pouring with rain, and you had to put layers back on. Yeah,
I mean, I thought it was all over for me on day 2, partly because I just started off so early. It was super cold, rolled out of bed, didn't really give my body time to warm up, but it was also, we were in minus figures and very, very cold, and I just got all sorts of twinges everywhere. Just my body wasn't warm. I wasn't keeping myself warm enough, so that definitely became a factor. And actually, I was inspired by something you did on one of the days in wearing compression socks, and I then I think it was day 3 or 4, did the same, and I just kept that going because it seemed to work. And
that definitely made a big difference. I think when you're plodding for that long, having that compression in your lower legs definitely does make a difference.
All right, shoes and socks then, because that's obviously a big one.
That is a big one,
and obviously people worry about blisters and things like that. Did we get any blisters?
Not a single blister. I didn't lose any toenails either, although to be fair, I only had about 2 before I started, so they weren't really
so I have a bit of a tactic here, and I know you don't do this necessarily quite to the extent I do. I literally just coat my feet in Vaseline, like everywhere. I know the key points, but I don't mind that. Whereas I know obviously some people find that feels a bit weird. And
I coat my toes in Vaseline, particularly if it's going to be wet, and it was pretty much wet all those days. But just a little layer on the top of my toes. Okay. I don't like it underneath at all. I feel like I'm slipping and sliding all over my shoe. I hate it underneath. But I didn't have any blisters. Changed my shoes a little bit. The first day we both went for road shoes on the Cloud Surfer, and they were not quite up to the route that Mark chose, but also they just didn't have the right enough cushioning for either of us. So the first 10, 15 Ks, we were like, these shoes are great. And then towards the end of the marathon, we were like, these shoes we're paying the price for these shoes now. We need
And it's not to say the shoes are bad, it's just
they're
not
just
right for that.
Not built for that marathon, yeah, exactly. And especially the terrain we were on for that marathon. We weren't on the road. They're really made for the road. From then on, I went for the Cloud Ultra 2, the new On Cloud Ultra 2, and was very happy with them.
Actually, the nice thing with them, I found, because it's sort of got an elasticated upper, I could actually have the laces quite loose as well, which also alleviated some, I got a little bit of issue with kind of the rubbing or tightness of the laces on the top of my feet. So yeah, that was quite interesting.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought that would actually be the biggest problem. And to be fair, my feet were taking a bit of a beating towards the end of it. Every marathon, your feet were really sore, and you were like, "How am I going to do this tomorrow?" But by the next day, they were generally okay. I did do a fair amount of foot recovery and treatment. I was rubbing them in the evenings. I was rolling them on a lacrosse ball in the evening while I was watching telly and stuff, because I was aware that is maybe my Achilles heel, not quite my Achilles, but that was something that could derail my whole week.
Yeah, I think that's probably for me right at the end. I was like, if there's one thing that's going to stop me, it's my feet. They were really, really, really sore.
Right.
Cool. Anything else?
Most things. I think we should probably mention, we won't go into too much depth, mostly because we don't want to, but training preparation for this. I mean, we got through it, and obviously we got through it by toughing it out. Essentially, you just got into rhythm and you toughed it out. But you had to have some preparation for this. My preparation didn't go particularly well, actually. I had a series of things that kind of derailed my preparation. But I was really fit 2 months before. I'd run a 100-kilometer mountain race, and I felt really fit. And then I had a couple of things. I had a medical thing where I was out for 2 weeks. Then I got ill for nearly a month, and I didn't do any running. So I had about 7 weeks of almost no running whatsoever, but on the back of a really good base of fitness. Yeah. And in the first day, I think I probably felt that. But then from then on, the overall fitness was there. The musculoskeletal fitness was there. The aerobic fitness took a couple of days to kick in, but I was okay. And I guess that's the thing. You don't need to do like intervals and high intensity stuff to prepare for something like this. It's just making sure that your musculoskeletal system can withstand that amount of impact for that long, and then you're fine. And we were fine.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I was necessarily coming from quite the fitness or the sort of the recent training history, like you trained for the ultra, but I have trained for an ultra in the past year in Snowdonia earlier on, and so I had that sort of tap into. Obviously, we do have that sort of latent fitness from being ex-pros, although maybe it feels a distant memory now. So
it doesn't feel like it most days, but apparently it's still there.
But yeah, the other thing, I mean, I was sort of thinking of the likes of Sean Conway and people who obviously are absolutely incredible, and I obviously just cannot understand how they managed to do what they've managed. However, they did have physio and massage every day.
Which we didn't. I did do some foam rolling, and my wife actually pulled out her old massage table and did give me a rub down one day, which helped a little bit, but it wasn't. We weren't going straight into the physio's table to get everything treated and all the niggles sorted out. We were generally carrying on with our daily lives in between, which was not the best way to do it, probably. Or maybe if we do it again, we'll go off away from the families for a week where we can have some support with us.
Now, would you give, if someone was to do, I'm not necessarily suggesting someone goes to do 7 marathons in 7 days, but if they do some mega, multi-day thing, any advice we would give them?
Well, we just said we didn't really do the recovery, but the recovery is the key. And it's not necessarily getting physio and massage and all that kind of stuff. It's rehydrating and being on top of your hydration. You can't get dehydrated one day and think you're going to be fully rehydrated if you drink a couple of bottles when you finish. Rehydration takes like 72 hours if you get really dehydrated. So you need to make sure you never get dehydrated in these things. And that was something that we had to stay on top of. Like as soon as I got in the door, I was already on the next day. And also, while you're doing it, you're not necessarily eating just to get to the end of that day. You're eating so that you're not in a hole for the following day. Like you're eating for the next day almost before you finish the first day.
Mine also would be do your admin. Like make sure you've prepped it really well, and also try and stick to quite a strict schedule. Obviously, mine was really the opposite of that, and I paid for it. But it was interesting when I sort of pulled that back and started to actually get it back on track that I saw the improvement with that. So mine would be, do the admin, get it all sorted and really
learn from some of our mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys are going for something like that, leave in the comment section down below. Let us know. We'd love to follow along and see how you're going. However, if you have other goals this year and you want to ask us questions about triathlon training, not necessarily about a marathon, but your own triathlon training, in the comment section down below, use the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner. And next week on our Coaches Corner, we'll be answering your questions rather than talking about our own adventures. Thanks for watching.